Hey, Joey Only, Caribou Weather Dude up here in Wells, British Columbia. Elevation 3,930 feet above sea level. That makes me the highest forecaster in all of Canada. I sit up here in my perch in the Caribou Mountains. The weather comes through BC first, and I watch it go across Canada and tell you all what to expect. That's what I do here on my channel. Please subscribe, hit like, and share, and support me because I'm trying to build something here. Okay, so we all know there's a big tornado outbreak coming to the central states. We talked about that in my video yesterday. If you didn't watch it, shame on you. But what we haven't mentioned much about yet is how a major storm is going to impact, that comes out of this, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and not yet mentioned by Environment Canada is the probability on Wednesday for severe thunderstorm activity in southern Ontario. And because of the nature of these storms, it is possible that there could be some quick spin-up tornadoes that come down in that time, although I think the danger area is to the south of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. However, that we cannot rule out. When that winter storm starts, it's going to move to Manitoba first. This is issued Monday, the 3rd of April. Colorado low is poised to make impacts to southern Manitoba Tuesday afternoon through Thursday morning. Confidence is increasing that portions of southern and southeastern Manitoba will be impacted by a major spring snowstorm this week. While the track of the low pressure system will change as the event onset nears, general amounts of 15 to 25 centimeters of snow appears likely. Highest confidence for heavy snow lies in the southeastern corner of Manitoba, with confidence decreasing. That's down here. With confidence decreasing further to the northwest, although latest guidance continues to narrow it on a more northerly track. So it could come up maybe a little more. In addition to heavy blowing snow, strong northerly winds will produce poor visibilities in blowing snow. More above freezing temperatures are likely by the weekend in the wake of the low pressure system as it spins and creates its southerlies. It should bring some warmer weather in. So that's maybe a little bit of good news at the tail end of this. And Northern Ontario as well, your winter storm watch. And, we may see some blizzard warnings at this time when we get closer to the day, right? So this begins Tuesday afternoon. That's tomorrow. 15 to 25 centimeters of snow in Northern Ontario. Strong wind gusts, 60 kilometers an hour. Intensifying Colorado low is expected to track over northwestern Ontario Wednesday when it hits the Great Lakes area. Snow ahead of the system is forecast to move into northwestern Ontario Tuesday afternoon or evening before tapering off Thursday morning. So that's a long event. Snow and ice pellets, 15 to 25 centimeters appear possible, although the track of the system remains uncertain. We keep hearing the snow may be mixed with ice pellets or freezing rain at times near Superior, potentially lowering snowfall amounts. And that's basically the same warning, more or less, all up and down this whole section of Northern Ontario. So from the western stretches of Lake Superior all the way up almost to the Hudson, to George, and into James Bay. Northeast Ontario, 5 to 10 centimeters possible. Surfaces could become icy, freezing rain with some accretion possible. Accretion means, it starts to gather and build. So that's when you have a buildup of ice. Expected track over northwestern Ontario Wednesday. Snow and ice pellets ahead of the system are forecast to move through northeastern Ontario Tuesday before transitioning to freezing rain Wednesday morning. Some areas may see the precipitation change to rain Wednesday, while others could see it change back to snow. This includes my mom's house in Bancroft Highlands, Denbigh, Bon Echo region of central Ontario, and Algonquin, and then up through Parry Sound into Sudbury, North Bay, along all the eastern Ontario, Cornwall included. That's where you could see rainfall of 20 to 40 millimeters, freezing rain. 5 millimeters of freezing rain could build up. Localized flooding could happen in low-lying areas, and snow could melt also, and that could increase flooding. Freezing rain beginning Tuesday evening or Tuesday night. So anyone planning to go anywhere Tuesday, maybe change your plans if you live in this wide swath of southern Ontario. Freezing rain appears likely Tuesday evening, Tuesday night before transitioning to rain. Significant freezing rain is expected in the Ottawa Valley and areas west, including Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, and North Bay. The rain will taper off Wednesday night, and we don't have yet any mention of the possibility on Wednesday for the severe thunderstorms in here. I don't know if they will issue a weather statement ahead of time, or if we'll just on the day of start getting severe thunderstorm watches put into effect. So we'll have to kind of look in the next 24 hours to see what goes on there. Freezing rain event on Wednesday through large sections of Quebec, and I have to like click off of it in order to see that it's everywhere north of Montreal up to Quebec City, basically, and then into the Laurentian Mountains. So we'll click on here again. So Environment Canada, that's one thing you can change. I really like your new site, and we don't have much prediction yet for how much might build up in Quebec, but this is a special weather statement for you. So already we see large story coming to a large part of Canada, and this is common at the spring, although it's very late now in the spring. But nonetheless, we get this cold weather down the south, the north, and we get warm weather from the south, and we get lows tracking across from the west, and we get wind shear, and we get everything. We get all the ingredients for crazy bad weather stories. So we'll just start at Monday at 9 a.m. and kind of look how this story builds. And this is already still remnants from the last bunch of storms moving through. So as I'm talking about this, parts of Eastern Canada are getting mixes of rain and snow and freezing rain as well today, right? But not enough significant. There's not much for warnings being or watches. That's not a huge story, but we already see Monday 11 as this low is really starting to increase and intensify in, well, it's what you call a Colorado low, a classic Colorado low, because it builds in Colorado. These are different than what it's called an Alberta clipper, which is when a low develops out of Alberta and moves south down and across. Alberta clippers tend to be drier, but with more wind and cold, whereas the Colorado low often brings tons of moisture. So we see, bam, Tuesday, the first little bit of snow at 3 p.m. according to at least the ECMWF model, because that's the one I like to use. It's conservative. You may get a bit of a different take on it if you're looking at the GFS model. This says already snow is moving into southern Manitoba just in time for your drive home. ECMWF a little more conservative, and that's why I kind of like to go with ECMWF, because when you make bold predictions, people are like, whoa, you were wrong. But if you kind of make safe predictions, conservative ones, um, you still get the point. Hey, look out at this time, but at least I'm not telling anybody things that aren't necessarily true. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Heavy snow up through Thunder Bay and along the Trans-Canada Highway. In order to get yourself into Manitoba, you're going to have to start going through this at that time. So if you have cross-country traveling plans, by Tuesday, 6 p.m., you better be off the highway if you are in that stretch. Tuesday, 6 p.m., we see in Iowa, Illinois, and into Wisconsin some severe storms likely. One thing I didn't mention yesterday, too, is severe storms that will be building down in Texas about a day after this through Wednesday, Thursday, and some of those look quite aggressive. And I know some of the storm chasers like to watch, like Stephen Jones is down in Texas. He's hedging his bets this week to be down there for that. He's hedging his bets. So Tuesday at 6 p.m., very dangerous storm setup going on already. And through North Dakota, South Dakota, and whatnot, the United States is going to be seeing some real blizzard-like conditions on the backside of this low. 8 p.m., major storms. Oh, looks bad for places like Chicago again. Tuesday, 12 a.m. Now we start seeing that freezing rain through central Ontario, and that looks like Sudbury, North Bay. If you're coming through Algonquin Park on the north side, or you're coming up the 11, you might run into that. Parry Sound, not very good. Definitely along the north shore of Georgian Bay and Huron, and the very, very east shore of Thunder Bay. So that includes Sault Ste. Marie. Could see that. Continuous snow going on still, and heavy winds through the backside of this. So Manitoba, definitely overnight Tuesday, you are getting snowed. And now we see Tuesday at 6 a.m. So when you start wanting to drive to work on Tuesday morning, and everybody who's in 4.8 centimeters over 3 hours, 5 centimeters over 3 hours, I believe this is over 3 hours, yes. So steady snow buildup pretty consistently. Eastern Ontario at this time getting a good dose of freezing rain Wednesday, 6 a.m., all the way up. And that's that whole weather statement that we just basically read through parts of Western Quebec, all through Algonquin, up past into central and northern Ontario. Then you look over at Western Ontario, the low kind of sitting at the very tip of Lake Superior, and it's helping bring a little bit warmer weather in along that flank. Michigan seeing thunderstorms at this time, Wednesday, 6 a.m. And this will be maybe where we start to get an idea of what Ontario might be seeing. And look at this, 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Heavy snow, heavy wind through Manitoba. Are you going to get a blizzard warning? Possible, very possible. Freezing rain all through Ontario, and then coming in at this time, already by 9 a.m., is the beginning of this aggressive storm setup. So we know, and there's lots of people in the United States putting out videos about what the severe weather will look like in the United States, but we still haven't had a lot of people talk about it in Canada because, this is sort of the first real go. We had some severe thunderstorm warnings last Saturday in the tail end of that last major tornadic system to affect the United States, and that was mostly down in Chatham and places like that, Niagara Falls, that saw the worst of that. And we can see already by 9 a.m. we might have thunderstorm activity from Owen Sound down to Goderich. Maybe some very strong thunderstorms coming off Huron at that time. Chatham, Sarnia, all in the area. And when that low starts moving, pushing its isobars across, definitely there's a bit of a wide trough. So it's the real thunderstorm activity at this time looks to be along the southern bit of Lake Erie. But you see, there's possibility for some of these storms in southern Ontario to be quite strong in through Kitchener. As we see at 11 a.m., strong convective available potential energy that starts all the way down in Mexico and this is why this tornado setup will be so deadly on Wednesday in the United States. And that can funnel all the way up, riding this low, getting pulled all the way up in this squeeze. It's kind of like a jet stream of its own way. And we got the dry in behind it. You got lots of available potential energy. You have lots of moisture riding this to feed into this low. This is going to be a real exciting storm. So with any luck, that first round peters out before it gets too deep into Ontario, but 4 p.m. we get a second round that starts coming through, and this one looks a bit more organized, and this is when your severe weather may affect you in terms of severe thunderstorms. Definitely south of London, Simcoe, all along this section of Lake Erie, and it's going to keep pushing its way through. The front of it may have some damaging winds or strong winds and things like this, so it depends on how this storm setup kind of works, but it could move its way into Toronto in time for 4 p.m. Definitely Fergus, Arthur, Orangeville at 6 p.m. That's an area that is of a concern. Markham, Toronto, the greater GTA. Then areas west of Peterborough like Lindsay, almost up to Fenelon Falls. Perhaps weak storms in eastern Ontario, maybe a little stronger coming off of Lake Ontario at that time. Very heavy rain south of Sudbury, 21 millimeters in 3 hours. So that's something of concern to watch out for. Heavy rain, localized flooding maybe in some places. What's the tornado threat this week up the Mississippi Valley? Again, it seems to be just a repeat in that way. Some of these storms at 8 p.m. will definitely be tornadic storms. These are guys to look out for. Louisiana, Arkansas. 8 p.m. we now have strong thunderstorms all through southern Ontario from Smith Falls to Peterborough. Maybe some strong ones in Toronto, just into Lake Ontario and whatnot. We see possibly a fairly organized potential for thunderstorms north of North Bay. When that blob of rain comes through, it might develop. So these are just protections. We see lots of rain and freezing rain into Quebec. That's big concern. And overnight, the thunderstorm activity will die off, and you'll have bands of heavy rain left in place. While that freezing rain moves into the Maritimes, I'm sure we'll start to hear some talk from them. Some mention from Environment Canada. That's definitely next Thursday. The next big story after this, the winter storm and freezing rain impacting Atlantic Canada, up into Newfoundland, everywhere like that. And will we see severe thunderstorms on Thursday into New York State, New Jersey, and places like that? Quite possible. Quite possible. So that's another story to watch out for. Big areas of concern in Mississippi, into Texas. Going to be some strong thunderstorm activity in there. Definitely. Cool temperatures to the north, fairly warm temperatures to the south still. So that's firing up storms that we should worry about. So these are all connected to the same damn storm. This just gives us a bit of an idea of how that storm tracks across, starting as a Colorado low. On the backside of the storm, we're going to see all this snow from Wyoming, Dakotas, North Dakota, Minnesota, into Manitoba, Northern Ontario, and a bit of a swath across, a mix. But the other thing is that rain will be a big story too. So there's a bit of a definite line between where the rain and the snow mix, and then there's this whole area in Northern Ontario and Western Quebec, where you're going to get a bit of a mix of both. Pockets of heavy rain, like we were talking about, through Sudbury in central Ontario, maybe, north of Belleville. That looks like a pretty good blob near Mom's house. Yeah, my mom lives up here. 44 millimeters of rain, Mom. If you're watching, I know you don't. She's never has good internet. She's totally country. And what makes this storm setup so particularly dangerous for everyone in the United States, and then for everyone in the forecast regions here in Canada that I've just been mentioning, is the fact that we still have so much cold air dominating much of Canada. High pressure bulb has really been sitting here for a long time. We see Tuesday overnight in the prairies, especially the eastern prairies, some very cold weather, right? Like some of these temperatures, we'll just stop for a second. So don't be surprised to see minus 17 in places like that, Saskatchewan and Northern Ontario, and it's April and we're still getting a lot of that real cold weather. But you see how that low is sucking in that extremely warm weather in the south. I mean, how warm is this weather? 35 degrees Celsius. So we got temperatures in places coming up into the mid United States that are 20 degrees above seasonal in places, right? So when this clashes, this is why this storm will be so angry, while it'll produce so much snow on the north side, so much freezing rain in the flanks, and so much potential tornado weather. And we can just see that line between the cold and the warm. You can tell that's where things are going to really fire off, somewhere just along this line, right? I mean, this is a scary setup. This is going to affect millions of people in Ontario, in Manitoba, and Quebec, but the tornado danger is going to affect millions of people in the United States, like maybe 30 million or something like that, once again, or more. And that low really taking its time, more so than how the last ones have raced across. It's really taking its time, and it's squeezing that high pressure into Newfoundland, northern Quebec, I should say. And that high pressure is kind of blocking it, not letting it go very far, and it's just taking its time. And that's why so much of the storm is going to last days and have so many different impacts that are hard to really predict. So this is the thing we're watching for. And in the backside of that low, cold weather again, minus 15 overnight Thursday in Saskatchewan, and it's not till a new low coming into BC on Thursday, we talked about in my video yesterday, when we start seeing the potential for some snow and rain. That helps warm up Western Canada. It's bringing that air from the south along. It will help produce the next story. And we are definitely in a pattern of severe weather in much of the continent. And by that I mean tornadic supercell weather, and then cold weather in Canada, and mix of winter mix. It's spring is slow onsetting this year. That's the way it is. So everybody, in Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, take warning. If you have friends through the central United States, make sure they're aware about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the different dangers that are coming with this massive, massive fucking storm. Okay, everybody, hit subscribe, hit like, hit share. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye now.